Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ambassador's Lounge. The Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, visited US and met the President of US, Mr. Donald Trump, on the 13th of February. According to the press release issued after the meeting, the two leaders launched a new initiative, the US-India Compact, catalyzing opportunities for military partnership, accelerated commerce and technology for the 21st century to drive transformative changes across key pillars of cooperation. Under this initiative, they committed to a results-driven agenda with initial outcome this year. The two leaders discussed a variety of subjects, and in the defense field, that they announced the plans to sign a new 10-year framework for the US-India major defense partnership in the 21st century. According to Mr. Trump, the US will eventually provide India with F-35 stealth fighters. In the trade and investment field, Mr. Trump and Prime Minister Modi agreed to double the bilateral trade to US dollars 500 billion. In energy sector, India assured that it will create a greater amount of oil and gas from the US, and they'll increase the imports to 25 billion US dollars. The two leaders agreed to launch negotiations for a comprehensive trade agreement focused on reducing trade deficit, which is presently around $50 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, this was what was announced by the two leaders in a joint press conference. We will be discussing various aspects of this visit and what transpired between the two leaders. My panel today includes Ambassador Ayaz Muhammad Khan and Ambassador Riaz Bukhari. Ayaz, let me come to you first. Now, the visit has taken place too early in the Trump presidency. Of course, it reflects a continuity of US policy and a strong bipartisan consensus in the US on ties with India. Do you think a pattern has been set on US-India relations under Trump?
Well, let's take it this way. This time round, contrary to the assertions of Indian media that this was a visit, that was on the invitation of Mr. Trump, actually Mr. Trump had summoned Mr. Modi to dictate his terms, okay? Because contrary to the first term of Mr. Trump, when Mr. Modi was invited by Mr. Trump to United States, and a kind of bonhomie or a bromance was established between the two. This time round, it was a more business-like attitude of Mr. Trump, who was dictating his terms to Mr. Modi, and Mr. Modi succumbed to the pressure of Mr. Trump, and he accepted practically all the terms that were told to him by Mr. Trump this time, which you have mentioned. For instance, it was also told by Mr. Trump to Mr. Modi that he should look into the trade deficit that was constantly growing. The trade between the two countries amounted to something like $120 billion.
Yes.
Of which $40 billion was
$50 billion is deficit.
So $40 billion were in favor of India,
Yeah.
And Mr. Trump was quite cheesed off. He was quite wary about that India had to take certain steps to buy more goods from United States. Similarly, the issue of immigration, illegal immigration from India, about which Mr. Modi immediately agreed that United States had the right to send all illegal immigrants back to India, skirting the issue of the way the immigrants were sent back to India, shackled and handcuffed, about which the opposition in India
Yeah,
was
they're taking strong exception to that.
So it was more of a business-like visit this time, contrary to Indian media's assertions.
Does it set a precedent? Does it set an example on how these relations will be under Trump in future? Now, Mr. Trump still has 4 years to go.
Yeah, of course. I think Mr. Trump, the way he behaved this way and he dictated his terms, it is clear that India is being appointed as the policeman on behalf of the United States in the region to counter the growing influence of China in Indo-Pacific, in ASEAN, and also in South Asia. India is being encouraged to remain as a hegemon, particularly in South Asia, to check if any elements inimical to United States interests emerging in the region. So it is to me, it appears that it is more of a client and a master relationship right now.
Yes, let me come to you.
But
There are two things which he has raised. One thing is the question of immigrants. See, there are about 800,000, around 800,000 illegal Indian immigrants in the US, and India is the third largest exporter of illegal immigrants to the US after Salvador and after Mexico. One thing. Second thing, what Ayaz has said, that it's more of a client-master relationship.
Your first question, whether this visit has set a tone of relationship under President Trump with regard to India. The President Trump invited Prime Minister Modi. Before that, Indian Foreign Minister undertook 2 visits to Washington, since I would say November up to this month. And during these visits, he held a number of meetings with the senior officials of the Biden administration, as well as the officials who are going to take over under President Trump. So the visit was well prepared for me. It was full of surprises as well.
Was it?
Yeah. And President Trump mostly talked about business, defense cooperation, energy cooperation. Energy cooperation means buying US oil as compared to their main source, which is Russia these days for India. So, the basic purpose of this visit, as far as President Trump is concerned, to win India, keep India away from Russia, and to prop up India as a counterweight to China.
What were the surprises? You talked about surprises.
Because he talked about trade,
But that was not
to
a surprise.
bring the gap closer, and to offer F-35 fighters. Is India capable
We'll
buy
come to that.
and switch over to US technology as compared to Russia?
Russian technology.
How much money would be required?
Yes, we'll come to that. Riyaz, still staying with you. Trump has called India a tariff king, a massive abuser of tariffs. And in one of his statements, he said India is a very hard place to do business because of the tariffs. Yet there was eagerness in the Trump administration, the Trump camp, to strike a deal with India. Do you think India was a target of Trump's trade war, or as some analysts say, China was the invisible third party?
No, China has always been there when you are discussing, Indo-US relationship. Whenever you talk about that, China would be there. Tariff war, I would say, Trump did not declare India as another party with regard to high tariffs when he was discussing Mexico, Canada, and other countries. But if you look at the 2023 three is, trade figures. India has high surplus with regard
About
to
$50 billion.
yeah, with regard to trade with US. So Trump is trying to reduce that gap
Obviously.
by offering a number of incentives to India. F-35 is one of them, and then other defense equipment. So it's all
But
meant
basically,
to.
what the trade deficit would be reduced by what Mr. Trump has said, the U.S. export of oil and gas to India.
So when they are exporting, the oil and gas to India, obviously, it will be at a bit higher rates. And India has to reduce its tariff regime. It has already done on certain, items from which they are importing from abroad, perhaps from 135
But
to.
it contradicts Mr. Modi's Make in India policy, under which it's important that India has a very strong protectionist regime.
Trump has accused India of high tariff regimes already. But if you look at the slogan which Trump has adopted, First America.
Make America great
yeah,
again.
And there in New Delhi, they talk about Make in India. So they have some, the conflict of interest over there. But, India has to open its market to the US goods and services. Energy is one of them. And then I talk about, this defense cooperation, which is quite capital intensive, and that take a long time to implement.
Well,
So-
if I may add, I think one of the factors that prompted Mr. Trump to force India to buy American goods is the simple fact that similar amount of trade is being done between India and China, and here China has a clear-cut trade advantage vis-a-vis India. It is exporting about 80% of its goods to India as compared to India selling it to China. So United States, Mr. Trump has realized that India is a huge market of 1.5 billion people, and why not capture it? Why not win India away from China and Russia, both in terms of defense equipment as well as the other trade items. As regards the Make in India thing is concerned, it's a point of concern now. What I have been reading and listening to Indian analysts, they say that once cheaper American goods would start pouring into the Indian markets, it is certainly going to do a lot of harm to the domestic production facilities in India, to the domestic industry in India, and the slogan of "Make in India" will certainly be set by that.
Yes.
Yeah, the cheap products you mentioned about. There is huge population of India which is of lower middle class or belong to poor segment of the society, and most of the Chinese goods which are imported in India, it caters to their needs. Will US be able to substitute that? I don't think so. In US will be targeting high segment of the society with more of
With
defense
Harley
technology.
Davidsons and things like that.
Yes. Poor people cannot buy that. It is more expensive than a car. So I don't think US will be able to compete China as far as import into India's are concerned. But US will be mostly targeting high segment of the society.
And another aspect in this whole thing is that United States is probably compelling India to shift its production facilities into United States, because once the import duties would be levied by United States on Indian produced goods, they will certainly not be able to compete with in the market, and then Indians probably would be compelled to shift their production facilities in India.
If they shift the production things to the US, the cost of production would definitely increase, because labor cost in India is much cheaper than it is in the US.
Well,
so it doesn't make sense shifting their production
actually
to the US.
they'll have to weigh whether producing goods in India, which is labor intensive, of course, is more feasible for them, or shifting the whole production facility into United States to save the massive tariffs. Because what we are talking about is not simple. A tit for tat kind of tariff, in a way that if India has levied, let's say, 5 to 10% on imported goods from United States, then United States is going to levy the same amount of tariff on Indian goods. No, it is not like that.
No, that's what Mr. Trump said.
He has ordered his team to sit down and see which countries, how they are obstructing flow of American produced goods into their countries, because there are certain other things, like administrative controls or non-tariff barriers, which are being practiced by other countries, including India, and they will also be taken into consideration, and then the amount of tariff would be decided as to how much United States is going to levy.
Tariff will remain an issue in the two countries. Yeah. It is not to be going away.
They are going to, they have said that the decision to this effect will come by the end of this year. Ayaz, coming to you, this Mission 500, both sides plan, that's US and India, plan to double the bilateral trade to US dollars 500 billion. Now, this is a four-fold increase in just 5 years.
Yeah.
Is it too ambitious?
No, it is certainly too ambitious. I don't think it is that easily achievable target. Currently, as we all know, that the bilateral trade amounts to something like $120 billion.
190 billion.
118, some people say 180, one say, well, 190, but it is under $200 billion. Yeah. Now pushing it up to $500 billion in a certain amount of time.
5 years time.
5 years time or 10 years time, as they say. Well, it's an ambitious target, and people, even in India, the trade experts are quite skeptical about it, whether it will be achievable in this amount of time. So we really have to wait and see as whether
we should not ignore the fact that purchase of defense equipment from the US will also form part of this, bilateral trade.
But more than that, it is the energy. It's the energy imports from US,
exactly.
Exports from US.
Energy export. I think India will try to go slow on that, because substituting Russia,
which is cheaper energy,
and they have been maintaining that relationship with Russia since long.
But Raz, that would be a challenge for the US, for India,
for both India and Russia, because it's a good market for Russian products, energy products in India. So Russia will also try to
but as things are developing, as Mr. Trump plans to end the Ukraine war, which would imply that the sanctions on Russia will ultimately come to an end. So Russia would have a greater market, perhaps the market would be short. So ultimately, India would stand to lose on that count.
I don't think India will stand to lose. India has some other resources as well.
What?
Middle
What are
East
those
for
resources?
energy resources.
What are those
India
energies?
has its refineries available.
But in Russian, import of oil. What are the other sources?
Crude, oil from other Middle Eastern resources. There are substitutes, because buying oil from the US resource will be a bit expensive.
Not bit, it's not expensive.
I mean, this is how, I don't have the exact figures available with me, how much it would be expensive, but just simple calculation, if you do that, you will come to know that US oil will be much expensive as compared to Russian and other Middle Eastern resources. Yeah. So substituting that will not be easy for India.
But then it will, this Mission 500, it would contribute towards that.
Mostly defense cooperation will form part of this Mission 500 if they want to meet that target in the next 5 years. Otherwise, just reducing the deficit and buying more from the US, and US start importing less from the Indian resources will not take the bilateral trade up to $500 billion.
Yes?
Well, I think that 500 billion figure about trade excludes defense
You
purchases.
see,
high military.
500 billion, they have made it, they've given this
Sacrosanct,
500 billion because the China-US trade is around $600 billion. So US is trying to push it towards that
To
figure.
match China, certainly on that. We have to take into consideration that India is the fourth largest country of military expenditure in the world, right? With $84 billion it spent in 23-24 budget. It is estimated that India is going to spend about $130 billion in next few years. And that would also include United States is aware of this fact that India has quite a lot of money to spend on military hardware purchase.
you are right.
And here is a market for American military hardware to be sold to India to wean away India from Russian defense purchases actually.
One question is, has India requested for US fighter jets, F-35?
No, they've not. They've
Okay.
not.
Why President Trump announced?
We'll come to that. Now, I ask coming to you, Marco Rubio, that's the Secretary of State, in one of his speeches, he said that about China, he said that they have lied, cheated, hacked, and stolen their way to global superpower status at our expense. Now, US wants India to be bulwark against China.
Yeah.
This is how Mr. Trump views India.
Yeah.
How far can India align itself with the US anti-China stance?
Well, quite a lot. I think this time round, India has been categorically told to be more proactive in promoting US interests by checking increasing Chinese influence in East China Sea and South China Sea both, and Indo-Pacific as such. The defense sale to India.
Staying on this, what you're saying is that US wants India to be more active in the South China Sea, to take the responsibilities there.
Look, Imran, hitherto India was reluctant to commit its military deployment, into Indo-Pacific, and by selling military hardware from United States to India, it has also been told India to be ready to deploy its armed forces as and when required.
So they're saying that there's no free meal.
There is no free meal, certainly. So that is what I said in the beginning, that India has now effectively been made a vessel of United States, and it has to act the way United States wants it to act in the region.
So has India burned the boats, Riaz?
I don't think so. India has reached that stage so far. India has, the surplus, the balance of payments, huge reserves. And as Trump has said many times with regard to his European friends and partners, that Europeans need to spend something on their defense. Similarly, now Trump's want India. They have earned a lot by doing business with the rest of the world, and US was spending huge amount on providing security, on international navigation, everything. Now India should spend money and take some responsibility. If you interpret it as a bulwark against China in the Indo-China Sea,
recent months there has been a recalibration of in the relationship between US and China, and this recalibration was driven by economic interests and military pragmatism. So India's relations with China, they are not as bad as they were before, and efforts are being made to improve them further. So in this scenario, do you think India is prepared, or India would accept what US wants? You see, you keep in mind that China is a neighbor, and US is far off.
No, US main concern is at the moment China. That too because of the trade war, or you can say tariff war. So where does India stand in that? That is one issue. Today we are talking about the Russia and US coming closer to each other. Talks on Ukraine are being held in Riyadh
Yes.
without inviting the leadership of Ukraine. So what's situation how it will emerge 6 months down the road, we don't know.
So no, my
Similarly,
question still is: Will India be prepared to align itself with U.S. policy on the Asia Pacific?
India has some great interest in the Indo-Pacific.
Of course, India has
Right.
interests there.
India will try to have its share in the Indo-Pacific, share of responsibility, as well as the pitfalls which will be generated because of the Indian larger role in that area. How India will continue to follow the US interest in the Pacific, that depends on India's relationship with Russia and China.
Yes.
Look, we have to be mindful of the fact that United States trade to India Pacific amounted to $1.9 trillion, and that's huge. It's a huge interest of United States doing trade with Indo-Pacific countries, ASEAN countries, particularly China, Japan, and Australia as well, which are part of the Quad. Japan's 80% exports pass through Indo-Pacific region. Okay, so here is the convergence of interests, trade interests of Quad countries here. Now India, it is now being said that India is faced with a very complex challenge as far as its foreign policy and military policy is concerned. The so-called strategic autonomy that India was exercising so far, in my view, after Mr. Modi's recent visit, is in tatters. Now it has been effectively told that India has no choice but to toe the line of United States. It will tell how it should act.
What they're saying is screw your strategic autonomy and behave correctly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Ayaz, do you think India's core national interests are in close harmony with those of the United States?
You just said that, if you are talking about, screwing the strategic autonomy of India, so what is left then, with India, with regard to relationship with China and Russia and BRICS and other, alliances which India has joined, like, Global South.
You have talked
what
about
will happen
BRICS.
about that?
You have talked about BRICS. How would India is in a real Indian? You see, Indian media, Indian people, they are very optimistic. There's a hype in India about after this visit. But now in BRICS, for instance, what would be India's position?
What will be the future of the common currency which BRICS were?
No, you say BRICS does not only comprise India; it has other members. But what would be the role of India in BRICS after this?
Obviously, if you are going much closer to the US, you will be losing India will be losing its clout in the BRICS. That is very clear.
Yes. I think that India, as I said, is now in a very, very complex situation. It has to wade through the bog, as dexterously as it can, because it has to maintain a very delicate balance between its relations, which are long-standing with Russia, with United States, the way United States is dictating its terms, and also with China, because China has India-China trade relations are quite substantial, and they are also partners in BRICS and also SCO. We shouldn't forget SCO as well. So how India is going to tread through this minefield has to be seen. It's a very complex challenge for them.
Riaz, coming to you, the Asia Pacific region is very important in international politics because of its economic dynamism and maritime trade routes. But it is unstable because of US-China rivalry. Now, my question is, has India formally joined this rivalry?
It is already there. When you take a responsibility into India, China, you become active on Indo-Pacific area.
Whether willingly or unwillingly.
Exactly, then you are part of it. And the recent the visit to Washington establishes that the India.
So you mean
will be-
after this agreement, after this meeting, after this agreement between US and India, India is formally joined as an ally of the US in in this rivalry.
India will continue to say they are partner for development with the US, but actually, India will be an ally of the US.
Can India afford?
Affording that alliance would be a bit difficult. It is already in I2, U2, and then Quads and other arrangements concerning defense consultation and other things with regard to Indo-Pacific. But this meeting with Trump has set the pace for future Indo-US cooperation, particularly with regard to defense cooperation.
Okay. I was coming to you. Now, many people believe that under Trump, US-China rivalry will increase in generally, and of course, particularly in the Indo-Pacific area. Now, if this rivalry heats up, India would definitely lose substantially. Now, do you think that defense cooperation being envisaged between the two countries will give India confidence?
Confidence.
Yeah.
What sort of confidence are we talking about?
To take on China?
Well, certainly not. China is a much bigger power, both in terms of military and economics vis-a-vis India. India is still no match to Chinese strength. Confronting China...
Getting F-35s and other defense equipment.
Well, we have to see, because, for example, F-35, it is being analyzed in India, and defense experts are saying that having this platform would be too expensive for India, not only to purchase but also to maintain it, in future. Besides, right now, Mr. Trump has not agreed to sell it F-35 right now. It is being envisaged that in near future.
He has agreed in principle.
In principle, that from 2025 onwards, this kind of platform would be sold to India in near future.
But India has not demanded it.
Of course, certainly not. It is being is being thrust on India. So whether India would actually, it has to be seen whether India would have the gall to stand up to United States and say, no, we do not need this expensive platform.
India has two options. It's Su-57, which is Russian.
Yeah.
The Russians have said that, well, we are prepared to have this thing manufactured in India, and it involves transfer of technology. What Americans are saying with F-35 is that it will not involve transfer of technology.
Imran,
and one plane would cost about $80 million, but if you increase the changes and everything, it will come to about $100 million. And if India purchases about 100 planes, then just imagine the cost.
Well, we have to take into consideration one important aspect, that within the Trump camp, there is also division of opinion, about selling F-35 to the countries who are maintaining Russian defense system.
S-400.
S-400 has been purchased by India, and it is a policy of United States that any country which is relying or has purchased Russian defense system is not entitled to the military hardware sale, particularly F-35 or other sophisticated fifth generation fighter jets.
And Turkey was affected because of that.
Exactly.
Turkey had S-400 and US refused to give
so we have to really wait and see whether it materializes in near future or not.
The offer is there. The offer is there from Trump that India can have the latest technology from the US, including the fighter jets. So far as, if you look into the current fleet which India is maintaining, it is either from Russia or from France. So India is in need of, if they want to expand their influence in Indo-Pacific, It needs
And don't you think
some
it would
modern
be a challenge
technology.
if they, my belief is that India would be more than happy to accept the Russian offer of Su-57. But that would be a greater challenge to their foreign policy. That would be a greater challenge to Indians as far as US is concerned.
One way of pursuing defense and foreign policy by United States is that, as we heard yesterday, the meeting which took place between Mr. Marco Rubio and Sergei Lavrov in Riyadh, where it was flashed to the Russian delegation by the delegation of United States that if a deal is reached on Ukraine, then United States would seriously contemplate investing in Russian economy and also waive the sanctions, and will also twist the arms of European Union to withdraw the sanctions against Russia. So this could be that this is my view that Russians might be told or compelled to tell China not to mess up in Indo-Pacific, because these two countries have very, very close relationship with each other, and also Russia should not object to growing influence and military hardware sale to India, being the primary supplier of arm equipment to the Indians. So this is one thing.
Riaz, coming to you. Now, Mr. Trump tweeted after a phone call with President Xi of China, and he said that President Xi and I will do everything possible to make the world more peaceful and safe. Now, there is a possibility of US-China grand deal. How do you think would India react to US-China G2 scenario?
President Trump is reputed to be a great deal maker, whether it is concerning property, in buying a property somewhere, or having a great relationship with another state. And his decisions are always full of surprises. This tweet you just quoted, that both countries, China and US, will try to work for a peaceful world, a prosperous world, and all these things. You never know, if they reach an agreement on bilateral trade, that will resolve so many issues at the global level. So, they are expected to meet soon. Once they meet, we will have some roadmap how they are going to deal with each other in the next 4 years. That will set the tone concerning Indo-US relationship as well.
Yes, in US basically basic problem with China is the tariff. Let me put it like this: Mr. Trump's problem with China is basically the trade imbalance. After that, even on Taiwan, I don't think Mr. Trump would be much concerned if this tariff issue is resolved.
Certainly, yes. His main concern, as you said, is trade imbalance between China and United States. And I don't know how much Mr. Trump is concerned about the military aspect of Chinese growing influence in the region. How much is he really going to commit, and how far is he going to confront China militarily or strategically in the region? He has already said to Taiwan that there is no free lunch. If Taiwan does not pay for the defense expenses being incurred by United States for its defense, then United States would not be obliged to defend Taiwan from China. So it's a very complex scenario. It is difficult to predict right now how the things are going to unfold. But one thing, to me, it's clear that China will not directly confront United States militarily.
It has no reason. It has no reason.
One thing, you thought,
But my question, gentlemen, my question basically is, how would India react to the possibility of a G2 scenario?
it's difficult to say at the moment. If in China,
See, there is a possibility, knowing Mr. Trump, there is a possibility that US and China can strike a grand deal.
This is what
Now,
I was
how
referring
would
to.
India react to that? If India has decided to burn its boat and you and Mr. Trump goes to China and strikes a deal with China, where does India stand?
One immediate effect will be, transfer of technology to India from the US. That
But
will
why?
be-
No, yes, my question is, why? How would India react if China and US strike a deal? What do you mean a transfer of
Then
technology?
there will be a big change at the global level as well. It's not only India specific. What will happen to BRICS if a deal between China and the US is grand deal is-
Look, Imran, hitherto Russia was a pariah state, as far as the United States was concerned. And suddenly...
United States under Biden.
Under Biden, of course. And now Mr. Trump has suddenly extended olive branch to Russia and is practically sitting there to carve out the
He has
future.
not extended olive branch. He realizes that that Russia is a world power. He realizes that China is a world power.
Okay,
is a power.
so
he's not extending. He's accepting their status as a power.
So what stops him from accepting China's growing influence and military and economic might, that it is also a very
my
important
question
power
is, how would India react to it? India, as you said, has burnt its boat. India has decided to be in the US camp. How would India react if US and China strike a grand deal?
Do you think India, Mr. Modi, was able to stand against what was being dictated to him in his recent visit, about all the things that we have talked about? Do you think that India will be able to stand up to United States and tell that, look, the way you are promoting your interests, your relations with China, it is harming us? India will have no choice but to toe the line of United States.
India is a sovereign country.
Come on, well, for God's sake.
India is a sovereign country.
Well,
Yes.
India is a sovereign country, no doubt. But when it comes to its dealing with the United States, the sovereignty is a bit compromised. They do talk about
the Indian Express. The Indian Express in yesterday's opinion writes that in Trump-Modi summit, benefits for the US are greater. Trump's desire to demand subservience to power was expected. That Modi would succumb so easily came as a surprise. Yes?
Well, as I said that, in the first term of Mr. Trump, the kind of bonhomie, and I said the bromance, that was established between the two leaders. Mr. Modi went with the same kind of air around him, and this time round he is also going to give a big hug to Mr. Trump, which did not happen.
Big hugs,
in fact, contrary to his expectations, he was snubbed.
Gentlemen, final question. Now, Pakistan has taken strong exception to the specific reference to US-India joint statement. In the US-India joint statement of February 13th, we have called it as one-sided, misleading and contrary to diplomatic norms. On the other hand, Chinese have said that the Asia-Pacific region is a hub for peaceful development, not a chessboard for geopolitical maneuvering. Forming exclusive circles and engaging in politics will not bring security and will only harm regional and global peace and stability. Riaz, your take on that?
The statement, issued by the spokesperson on this developing relationship with the US and China is very timely. But we are more concerned about, the US view of the region and, helping or supporting and, in India as a counterweight to China, and then creating an imbalance in the region by providing arms and increasing the race or armaments in the region. We are more concerned about that. US should see the ground realities in South Asia and then formulate its policy while dealing with India. That is important. The second thing which we are concerned about, the mention of counterterrorism in their joint statement, and mentioning of Pakistan as a state, promoting views on terrorism in the region. We are concerned about that. US should have taken Pakistan position into account because both countries are cooperating in the counter-terrorism matters since long. So there is ongoing cooperation with the US on counter-terrorism.
Yes, what's your view on that?
Well, I think that the way Pakistan was mentioned in the discussions between the two, and also in the joint declaration after the visit, it appears that Pakistan is not that relevant, as far as United States, Pakistan or India, Pakistan relations are concerned. Although negatively it did appear, but India is obsessed with Pakistan, and Pakistan does matter. Pakistan does have a weight in the region, both socially, politically, diplomatically, and militarily, I would say. So it cannot be brushed aside the way Indians were expecting. But certainly it's a matter of concern for Pakistan because the military hardware that is being promised by United States is further going to tilt the geostrategic balance in favor of India, which will be a destabilizing factor in the region.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, you have watched our program. That now India-US relations under Mr. Trump's second administration, they are projected to grow. Both sides have similar visions as far as Asia-Pacific is concerned, and the assertiveness being displayed by China. Therefore, it's not surprising that Mr. Trump's cavalry is loaded, studded by India doves and China hawks. Moreover, Mr. Trump's foreign policy, as you all know, tends to downplay value-based approach to international relations, and this is quite close to the heart and preferences of Mr. Modi's BJP, which has, as the Human Rights Report says, has persisted with policies that discriminate and stigmatize religious and other minorities. This led to increased incidents of communal violence in many parts of the country. Now, during the, as you would recall, as you know, that during the meetings of Mr. Trump and Mr. Modi, there was no reference to India's communal violence or press gag or what they are doing in Indian occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and killings of Sikhs in Canada and in the US. Now, having said that, there are potential divergences between the two countries. While Mr. Trump has been talking about Make America Great Again, which has a foreign policy aspect also, to ensure reciprocal tariffs. Mr. Modi's Make in India policy necessitates protectionism. Finally, under Trump's second administration, India's strategic autonomy, as my panelist also said, is under strain and will be tested in the next few years. Let's see if the golden age of US-India relations has started. We'll be watching closely and we'll come back to you on this thing. Please subscribe to our channel and we will be back. Thank you very much.